Now, if for any reason my connection shouldn't, but if it goes a little bit iffy, I am recording everything and it will all come out perfectly in the recording. So hopefully, fingers crossed. I would ask you during the presentation if you wouldn't mind putting your mics off just to stop any disruptive noise because I get a bit thrown if I'm hearing a telephone conversation or something else going on in the background. I can't cope. I'm going to have Q&A at the end, and I want to get all of this done within the hour, including the Q&A. So I'm going to be galloping through as fast as I can. I probably won't be able to see the chat as I'm doing this. So if you need anything, if there's anything I need to know, shout at me, okay? Because then I will pay attention. And I think that's probably it on the housekeeping front. I am going to be giving you lots of options today in terms of how you might want to take your application for the event that we're going to be talking about. If you want to chat about your approach, then please do it in the Hothouse group. So come into Hothouse, put up a post saying, would you please look at this? Or what do you think of that? Or I'm a bit stuck in this area, whatever it is, shove it in Hothouse because I will be in there regularly looking and I will happily help. And I know that other people who are juggling the same questions would really appreciate that and hopefully would join in as well. So I would like to encourage you to use the resource that we have. So today we are going to be talking about a new initiative that I've got planned for, let me get this date right, the 27th of March, which is a Thursday. Um, and the idea is, sorry, my phone is going off. Um, the idea is that on that day, we race. We race to get our social media done for the coming month. And the plan is that going forward, it will be a monthly event that, apart from sort of gathering materials ad hoc as you go, all the prep that I'm talking about today will only need to be done once. So we'll do it once ahead of the first race day, and from then onwards, we'll be ready to go each time, more or less. So I'm going to share a presentation with you that I hope is going to make everything crystal clear. So just bear with me while I get that up and make sure that you can see it. Okay, so are you seeing a presentation that says Social Media Race Day? If anybody could nod, that would be great. Super, thank you. Okay, so this is webinar one of two. And sorry, could I ask for those that have arrived a little bit later, if you wouldn't mind putting yourselves on mute, just because I'm a bit skittish and I get thrown a little bit when I hear other conversations going on in the background. So this is webinar one of two. The first webinar is going to be about concepts and strategy. So we're thinking big picture, we're thinking what we want to achieve, and we're going to be working on that for the next couple of weeks, getting our ideas straight. The second webinar, which is going to be on Tuesday, the 18th of March. I'm trying different times of the day to see what suits different people. So the one on Tuesday, the 18th of March is going to be at 6:30 p.m. And this webinar is going to be how we're going to do it. Okay, so number one is strategy, and number two is how we're going to do this. So much more practical in number two, although I'm going to be touching on a little bit of that with number one. The day itself, the very first social media race day, is going to be Thursday, the 27th of March. It's going to, so I've designed the times to hopefully to align with the needs of many of my clients who have kids at school. So the idea is to start at 9:30. We're going to have a get together Zoom. It's going to be very brief. The point of it is just to troubleshoot any last questions, and we will then gather again at about 2:45 for a debrief, and we will be done by 3. So that is the concept. In the time between those two bookending Zooms, we're going to be racing as fast as we can to get all of our social media done, or at least a good foundation of our social media done for the coming month. And that is going to be the program each time. So today we're here for webinar one, and sorry, I'm obscured. I can't quite see my slide. I'm going to start with an introduction. I'm then going to talk about how the conflict between our experience of social media and our actual business strategy needs. I'm going to talk about brand identity. Can't see my slide. Yes, brand identity and brand content pillars. We're going to talk about your profile, your pinned posts and highlights. I want to talk about the sales funnel, and then I have got some to-do stuff for you ahead of the next webinar, so that when we enter race day itself, we're in the best possible shape just to crack on. Okay, now I think when I talk to interior designers and we discuss the challenges that they confront, social media always comes up in that sort of top three challenges. To some extent, people feel like they're being reactive, they feel stressed, they feel like it's something that they have to do and they're not enjoying it and they're not sure that they see the benefits. So perhaps without having the time and a sort of strategic overview, we end up with a bit of a scattergun approach. We post haphazardly. We don't post with the consistency that everybody tells us is really important. We end up sinking time without getting the greatest return on that time, and we miss opportunities. So, we have great materials hidden somewhere that never get in front of the public because we just overlook them or forget about them because we aren't being strategic. Today, when I talk about posting, I am going to be focusing on Meta, but come race day, I know that other platforms are going to be part of everybody's plan or part of some people's plan. I'm personally also going to be working on LinkedIn. So we can talk about all of that, but just for the purposes of keeping it simple this morning, I'm talking about Meta. Okay, so race day, the concept, this is the first time it's going to run, so it might be a little bit white knuckle first time out as we discover how it really comes together. It's a time box. So a time box in time management is a contained block of time during which a task must be completed. We are not going to tolerate any overspill. We're going to get the job done within this period of time and move on. So race day is a time box for social media content generation. It needs to be part of our intentional business strategy. So we need to know what our long-term business goals are, where we're trying to take our business, and we want to align the way that we use social media to fit with those goals. We also need to have an awareness, I'm going to touch on all of this in this presentation, have an awareness of clients who are at different stages of our sales funnel. Some clients have only just met us. Other clients have been watching us for a long time. They have different they're going to behave differently. They're going to want to see different things from us. So we need to have that in the back of our mind. Now, I keep thinking of this social media race day, it's a date, okay? It's not a marriage. So if you decide this month, oh, that didn't go so well, we can try something different next month, okay? So I want to get people to loosen up and not feel using analysis paralysis over what they're going to do, because we'll just try something different next time. So it's a training exercise. We're going to try something, we're going to learn, we're going to improve, we'll try, we'll learn, we'll improve, and so on. I'm planning on running it monthly. It's experimental. It will improve as we go. So bear with on this first occasion. Let's try it and see how it works out. But most of all, well, not most of all, as well, I really want it to be fun. And I don't know that fun is necessarily something that I've heard interior designers associate with their social media content generation. And so wouldn't it be lovely if we could get it all done, get a foundation done, have it relate strategically to our business goals and enjoy doing it. So that is the overview of what it is meant to be. So as a result, we will be more intentional. We're going to be more grown up in our approach and in terms of what we post. We're going to be more consistent because we are going to schedule our posting so that it occurs as frequently as we want. We're going to remove some of the stress around this because we're going to be prepared, we're going to plan, we're going to, just follow our own plan for the day. And we're going to ensure that our long-term goals are being served and promoted. Now, so it's not just about getting the content made, it's actually about doing it better. So we're going to get it done, which we might not be at the moment, but we're also going to do it better. Now, on the day, I'm going to be making my social media. I want to experience it myself so that I can make it as good as it can possibly be. So I need to be in the trenches too. I'm going to be making my social media on the day as well, which means that everybody needs to turn up to the day ready to go. There won't be any coaching during the day. Now, if you need help with something, you can post in Hothouse. I will try to keep an eye on it. But the point of these two webinars is that we're prepared in advance. And I love to talk about splitting yourself in half, having half of you is the boss, half of you is the worker. All of our bossing we're going to do, all of our planning and everything is going to be before race day. And we're going to send our worker mode to race day to actually just get down and do it. So all of the prep needs to be done ahead of race day itself. Okay, so I want to talk to you then very briefly about a typical experience of social media versus our business strategy. I personally know I need to be more strategic. I have got a plan. I know my long-term goals. We need to be thinking in terms of generations or in terms of world building. We need to be big and ambitious. Instead, what so often happens is I scrabble around and I light a sparkler. And sometimes my sparkler doesn't even sparkle that much. It's a reactive thing and it isn't part of a strategic overview. The other thing that I find frustrating is the other day I wrote, for example, a blog post on human-centric lighting. I invested half a day in it, and I haven't even mentioned it yet on social media. So we've got all of these resources that we're generating and this material. And because speaking personally, I'm not applying myself strategically to the business of creating my content, I'm missing out on opportunities. I'm missing out on using great materials. So we are going to be strategic, and that's what this presentation is going to be about. Now, you are perfectionists. How do I know this? I know that you're perfectionists because you're interior designers. Okay, so the two things go hand in hand. I think of this as being a bit like singing. I could study singing, I could watch programs about singing, I could, read about singing. But in terms of being a singer, I'm not going to learn the first thing unless I get up and sing. So we need to actually get out there and have a go at something. And that's what I'm saying about this being a date and not a marriage. I'd like you to just loosen up. You can always delete the stuff that you do. If it isn't perfect, it can get deleted. But I know that I've got a lot of new designers in Hothouse who are concerned about getting it wrong or, are worried about how it's going to come off. And the fact is, you're just not going to improve unless you put it into practice and have a go. So I would like everyone who comes along to self-certify at a level. And this is not scientific. This is just a sort of random concept. But what level are you? How many posts a week do you think you want to attempt? How many platforms do you want to post across? Are you going to be making source content from which you will draw your social media material? So, for example, are you going to write blogs? Are you going to write articles? Are you going to make videos? I would recommend that if all of this appears new to you, that you set yourself very unambitious goals for the first time that we go out, because it's going to be more complicated than it looks at first glance. So for those of you who are here, who I know are really experienced, you've already got great profiles and feeds. Obviously, you can take on more because you know what's involved. But for anybody who's a little bit hesitant, I strongly recommend that you decide to do just 1 or 2 posts per week for the duration between the race days, and that you stick to maybe a single platform, for example, Instagram with a side of Facebook. So I'll leave you to think about that for yourself. But whatever your instinct is, I might recommend that you pull it back a little bit because it's going to be more complicated than it looks, particularly if we're not just creating the content, but we're scheduling it as well. These are all new skills that you will get better and faster at, but first time out, keep it simple. So I'm going to talk to you now about brand identity and content pillars. And this is where you start thinking about what you're going to post, what your themes are going to be, what you're going to talk about specifically when it comes to your business on social media. So content pillars, branding content pillars are the themes that your business selects to use within marketing to help give a picture to the outside world of what you're all about. Now, we choose, let's say, 3 to 5 of these, and we focus on those in order to give personality to our business and to give the world a real understanding. I've got a whole list here, and I am going to go through them, but the 2 that I want to pick up, first of all, the first one is personal branding, and the second one is business and services. And I think that everybody should be thinking about these 2 content pillars as being themes that you come back to every month. So every month we are serving these content pillars and addressing them. Now, first of all, personal branding. This is the one that everybody hates is too strong, but this is the one where you have to put up pictures of yourself. You have to talk about your philosophy, or have to talk about yourself and your journey and how you work. Maybe you're putting up video of yourself. Maybe you're putting voiceovers onto things, but you're making yourself more visible as the face of your business. So most of us here are from the residential interior design world. And in residential interior design, we're selling to people. We're not selling to companies. And people buy from people. And I look at a lot of interior design profiles and social media feeds, and I would say a good 10% of them, there isn't even a name. I don't even have a human name associated with that business. Even when I go and look at their website, I can't find out what the designer is called. Never mind a face. And in a minute, I'm going to talk to you about AI, which those of you who know me know that I love AI. I use it all the time. But I also believe that increasingly it's going to start competing with us for our business. And that you, being a human being, speaking to your human clients, are going to give yourself the very best chance of prevailing in the change in our market that is almost certainly going to come. So personal branding, being out front, putting yourself out there, getting increasingly comfortable with speaking on video, speaking to a camera, it takes goodness, I mean, it's taken me, I'm not brilliant at it, but it's taken me 2 years to even be able to speak and sort of not stutter. So you need to be practicing now so that once things maybe get a bit tougher, you're really good at it. So personal branding, your authenticity, your approachability is going to come through the clients having visibility of you. They want to work with real people, not faceless businesses. So we're sharing our stories, our inspirations, and our daily life in order to make the brand relatable. And here are some examples of the kinds of posts that you could put up as part of personal branding. You can position yourself as an expert in your niche. We're going to talk about niche as being another content pillar in a moment. But, make an attempt to establish a position for yourself as being an expert in a particular, in your particular area of interior design practice. So you could start to work up educational content. Trustworthiness and professionalism. I think your reputation is probably the most valuable asset that your business has. Once you lose that trust, um, it's going to be hard to get it back again. And I'm watching a designer at the moment who has been posting for months AI images claiming that they are her interior design output, and they are not. And she is not telling the truth. And it's just such a bad look. So personal branding, trustworthiness, professionalism. I watch other interior designers who routinely post with spelling mistakes, and a lot of our clients would assume that if you can't get onto social media with just basic spelling, how trustworthy are you going to be in terms of your your professionalism and so on? So you need to have, in terms of what you're posting about yourself, I also think about your friendship groups, the sort of intimacy of friendship groups. And this is something that you're going to want to think about as well in terms of tone. How informal or formal you're going to be, how intimate you're going to, allow insights into your life to become. And that will depend on your ideal client. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's the ring of people really close to you who know everything about your life. Then there are your best friends who know pretty much everything about your life. Then there are acquaintances who know a little bit about you. And then there are strangers who just know a tiny amount about you that you choose to put out through that final filter. How close are you going to allow the world to get to you in terms of what you put out on social media? So trustworthiness and professionalism, and then personal style and creative vision. So your business brand is one thing, your personal brand is another thing, but of course they should marry, they should tie up, there should be a link between the two. And people are going to look at you when you put yourself out there, um, as being a manifestation of your design output. So you have to have that in mind, and you have to think about how you're going to present yourself, because that needs to be on brand. So I know that I have massively focused on this personal branding thing, but it's something I'm going to be doing a lot more work on in the future, because I really believe that there is going to be a line within residential interior design, and the people who are putting themselves at the face of their business will succeed in a way that the people who aren't will not. I think this is going to be a defining feature. So I do think that personal branding and starting to get comfortable with that is really critical. The next content pillar that I think we should all be featuring is your business and services. So that should come up a post every week that clarifies exactly what you do. Now, I've put a suggestion on the slide, which is a sort of generic interior design proposal. So maybe you do by the hour consultancy, maybe you do bundles of hours, a bundled package, and then maybe you have a full design service. I know there's other ways of working, but let's just play with those three for now. So those are your services. And then I want to start thinking about good vehicles to show off those services. So things we can talk about each of those services that make really shiny, nice, um, cars to drive them around in. So, for example, what, which of your, which market does each of your services suit? Who is it good for? Testimonials for each of those services, the process with each of those services, the outcomes that you could expect from each of those services, and perhaps as well some indication of the cost of each of these services. Now, I actually think this next bit probably should have gone into webinar 2, but I want to show you how horribly spreadsheety I intend to get about organizing all of this so that the things that we want to tell the world about our business end up being the things that we do tell the world about. So across the top here, I have got the 3 different services. We've got by the hour, bundled packages, and full design. And down the side, I've got the 5 different vehicles into which I'm going to package these different services to show them off to the world. And in this way, I could come up with ideas for 15 weeks of content. So week 1, I could think about by the hour consultancy, and I could talk about who it's good for. It will suit you if. Week 2, I could put up a testimonial for my bundle package. Week 3, I could talk about the process of the full design service. Week 4, I do a testimonial for by the hour. Week 5, I talk about process of a bundle package, and so on. So in this way, in this horrible sort of spreadsheety way, over 15 weeks, I know that I've spoken about each of my three levels of service, and I've been through, in terms of I've displayed them in different lights in different ways for each of those 3 services. So that's 15 weeks of content in terms of what should I post this week about that service. Just make sure that these services are constantly being reflected. So other pillars of content, or content pillars rather, location. I work with some designers who live in work in fairly remote areas where the number of clients per square mile is really quite small. And so they can't afford to be terribly distinctive in terms of their design style. They can't afford to niche down and just focus on bathrooms. They have to offer everything to everybody. But the way that they can be distinctive is they can focus on their location. So they can talk about makers in their location. They could talk about the beauty of their location, property in their location, the kind of architecture that's typical, the materials that are prevalent. So you could talk, a pillar could be your location. If maybe you have a signature style, maybe you want to talk very specifically about sustainability, ethics, and well-being. That is a really important pillar for you in terms of what you offer the world. Values. I have other clients who, again, don't live in terribly affluent areas. They have to throw their net far and wide. They can't afford to be too distinctive, but what they can talk about is their values. They can talk about their values in terms of their community. They can demonstrate what good people they are effectively, which will help put them forward. And I don't mean bragging, but just through the way they are and the things they show about their lives. Values can be something that we could demonstrate. We could try to become more educative. We could be leaders, thought leaders. We could talk about trends. We could talk about lifestyle and culture. So we could talk about books, we could talk about art, we could talk about society. Or maybe we have a specialism or niche. So perhaps we are a kitchen designer or a lighting designer or someone who specializes in color or renovations or new build or whatever it is. So these are pillars of content or content pillars. And ideally, you would choose between 3 and 5 of these. And I think everybody should do personal branding and everybody should do business and service. So that leaves you to choose some more. Now, so AI. Now, so I'm just checking the time. Okay. You probably know that I use AI a lot, and I put this is a prompt on the screen. You don't need to read this. There's a horrible slide. There's a prompt here, and I put this prompt. You can download it from the Hot House group if you want it. I So the actual prompt that's in Hothouse says, fill in the blank. I am a designer specializing in fill in the blank. On this one, I made up a story. I created a made up interior designer and I filled in the blanks. And the question to the AI at the bottom, if I can just read it, it was based on this, most of which I have written for you. Suggest a set of 5 content pillars that will help me establish expertise, attract my ideal client, and make social media content creation feel both strategic and enjoyable. So we're talking about the things that you love to think about in terms of design. I put this into Claude AI. I'll write that down for you in a minute. I put this into Claude AI and I asked Claude which is free, and I asked Claude to come up with those 5 content pillars. And I'm going to show you the instant response. And it was formatted in exactly the way I'm going to show you. So it came up with 5 possible content pillars. The first one was a content pillar it called Timeless Transformations. Sorry, I'm going to move the obstacle to the other side. And it said that this could be a series that I ran that was before and after project stories highlighting the journey from a family home to a sophisticated adult space. So I said that this interior designer specialized on working with empty nesters who now wanted to invest in their property, having had years of kids beating the place up. They now wanted a beautiful home, but they wanted a home that people were enticed back to, that the family were hungry to return to for events and celebrations and getting together. So timeless transformations, the journey of a family home to a sophisticated adult space, photo essays showing room transformations, short video walkthroughs explaining design philosophy, client testimonials highlighting emotional and practical benefits, or storytelling about how spaces evolve with family life stages. So that would be pillar 1, timeless transformations. Pillar 2 was heritage, colour and pattern. So a masterclass diving deep into your signature approach to colour pattern and traditional English design. The content types would be expert tutorials on colour theory, behind the scenes looks at fabric and material selection, lighting design tips, creating warm, inviting atmospheres, material sample showcases for your studio, and historical context for traditional design elements. Number 3 was heirloom styling, demonstrating how to integrate antiques and vintage pieces into modern family homes. And it gives a list of different types of content you could create under the pillar of heirloom styling. Design investment, educating clients on the long-term value of high-quality interior design, cost per use analysis of quality furniture and materials, sustainability and durability of traditional design choices, the impact on your home value and your family lifestyle, and so on. And the final one was homecoming spaces, emotional storytelling about creating homes that draw families together. Personal stories from clients about how redesigned spaces reconnected the family, design strategies for creating welcoming multi-generational spaces, emotional design philosophy videos, advice on creating spaces that feel like a safe harbor, or styling tips for spaces that encourage family gatherings. I think this is incredibly powerful, so that came from the prompt that I've put into the Hothouse group straight into Claude. So Claude, which is claude.ai, it has a free version, which is the one that I used, concluded by saying that each of these pillars was designed to showcase your expertise, address your ideal client's aspirations, provide valuable shareable content, and highlight the unique value of your full service design offering. And then it asked if I wanted any further elaboration, which a simple yes, and off we would have gone with more information. So we need to think about who we are talking to. When we draft our social media, when we're producing our social media, we're not just talking to our ideal client, but obviously they are key. We're also serving the referral and word of mouth network. We are talking to industry peers and prospective collaborators. We are out there in front of the media, the press, and thought leadership. We are opening the doors to future business growth and opportunities. And of course, you're making statements on behalf of your own brand and personal values. So we keep the audience in mind when we think about what we're writing. Um, so foremost among that on that list is the ideal client. And we need to be thinking about our ideal client. Who are they? Now, I heard a review, nothing to do with interior design. I heard a review the other day about TV, making TV content. It was about Netflix, actually. And it was talking about some producers making the content people want to watch and other people making the content that they think people should watch. And the fact is, we want to watch Traitors and other more highbrow stuff as well. We don't necessarily want to watch the things that people think we should be watching. So, your ideal client, you need to be creating bingeable materials that hit their sweet spots, the things that worry them, that they want to know more about, or they need reassurance, or they need to be told the truth about, the things that interest them, and the things that excite them. So, you're talking about what they want to understand and not about what you want to say. Their values, because you are going to connect with them on this level. If you have conflicting values, that's where, relationships with clients can start to break down. Your presentation, it's a bit like an audition on the stage. So this whole personal branding type of thing is, it's a bit like the movie where the starlet is on the stage and the audience is blacked out and you're in the spotlight and you're there talking and trying to say the thing that wants to be heard. And there are tells in your materials. So I've had some clients who worry that they only seem to get low budget clients themselves. And yet, when you look at what they say about their services, they're actually, talking about IKEA hacks, or they're talking about, being very careful with their clients' money, or they're talking about low budget options. And when you talk about all of these things, you are going to attract people for whom keeping the price down is going to be a serious consideration. So think about the tells in your material that are giving the client the message about who you are and that might be bringing the wrong people towards you. Okay, now coming back again to this is a date and not a marriage. For the purposes of getting everything done on race day, we need to have a brand identity. And that means that we have to have chosen fonts. We need to know what colors we're going to use. We need to have any graphics that we're going to use. We need a logo. Potentially, you don't have to have a logo. It's not necessarily going to appear. And you need to have in mind the tone that you're going to use. So I was speaking about, how intimate you're going to be, how informal or formal you're going to be, whether you want to set yourself up on a pedestal as being an expert in a particular field, whether you want to be more someone who's going to take people by the hand and help them out emotionally. What is your position going to be with your ideal client, and what tone are you going to take in the language that you use when you speak to them? So we need to choose these for the first time out. And if you look at it and you think, no, that really hasn't got what I was hoping to achieve, then it can be remodeled for the next time. But we need to have made these decisions for race day on the first occasion. Okay, now profile pinned posts and highlights. I've used my account as an example here. It's not because I'm particularly proud of this. I just didn't want to pick on anybody else's account when I was showing this. So So what you're going to be doing is you're casting out a net, you're casting out a fishing line, you're baiting the end of the line with a post or a reel or a story or whatever. So you cast that out into the general world and you hope to pull people back in so that they are going to look at your profile. That is what you're hoping to achieve. That means your profile has to be optimized for that ideal client so that they are then motivated to follow you or to contact you or whatever it is you want them to do. So before race day, we need to get our profiles knocked into shape. You can ask for advice on this in Hothouse. You know, you can ask for people's opinions on what you put there. You need a decent profile picture, you know, back to those personal branding terms of professionalism and making sure that, you know, you're appearing exactly as you should. Then, in terms of pinned posts, you'll see that most sort of big, big feeds and accounts have got pinned posts at the top that, you know, personal branding might go up there, an about you, so that people can instantly find that. If you've been featured in a magazine or in the media, then that would be something else that might go up and get pinned. Your services, the kind of services that you offer and how you work with clients might be something else that get pinned. So if you don't have that information ready to pin at the top, then these could be posts that you plan to produce during race day so that you can then pin them, you know, as they go up, you can be pinning them to the top of your profile. And then we also have the highlights. So this is an opportunity to pick aspects of your practice that you want to bring to the attention of your ideal client. And we want people to find stuff and want to binge it, you know, on our profile. So think about putting the titles and the headings there that people are most likely to want to sort of consume a series of these things to learn more about you and learn more about your services. So we need to get all of this knocked into shape so that as we cast our fishing line out and we reel people back in, when they get here, it all works to serve us. And that would include also links to your website or wherever you want them to move onto once you've dragged them in on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. Sales funnel. Now, I just want you to bear in mind that out there, it's, you know, I'm sorry, there's an awful lot of sort of trite marketing statements, but another trite marketing statement is you can't sell to cold traffic. So you want to be warming people up. And the first thing you're going to do is you put out posts, you bring in strangers. These strangers don't know you, but now they're aware of you. They're at the top of your sales funnel. And you want to then, through the materials that you produce, funnel them, keep them interested, draw them closer to you with the materials that you're putting out into social media. You're going to engage them, you're going to nurture them, and then eventually you're going to convert them. So we warm them up and eventually they become paying clients to our business. So just for the back of your mind, we need to have this as a criteria for the materials that we produce. Top of the funnel, cold traffic, people they don't know you, they don't trust you, they don't have a great deal of patience for what you're going to show them. So we really want to be showing them very short, easy to digest stuff. So some of the stuff we put out monthly needs to be short and easy to digest for these people. And introducing yourself, obviously, you know, if you introduce yourself once a month, not everybody is going to see that. You know, only a small percentage of your followers are going to see everything that you post. So you can afford to repeat yourself. In the middle of the funnel, they're getting warmer. And now they're prepared to give you a little bit more of their time because they're starting to like you and they're interested in what you have to say. You can engage them for like up to 3 minutes. So you can put up stuff that is a little bit more in depth and a little bit more requires a bit more from them to invest in you. And then as they really get to the point of almost working with you, then we get to the point of making decisions and we can give them longer form content. Okay, so these are things to have in the back of the mind. Homework. So before the next webinar, we're going to look at how we do it. Okay. Before the next webinar, decide your goals. What is it that you want this process over a period of time to achieve? Are you just trying to raise awareness? Are you trying to sell a particular product? Do you have particular things that you want to sell at different times of the year? What are your reasons for wanting to be out there on social media? Then I'd like you to decide the level that you are going to go in at. Are you a level 1? You're just going to be doing 1 or 2 posts a week on Facebook and Instagram, or you want to do something more ambitious. You need to have your brand identity together. So you could choose font, colors, graphics, tone, and a logo if you need one. You don't necessarily need one. And content pillars. And you can use the post, the prompt, the instruction to AI that I put up in the hothouse, fill it in with your business in mind. It took me less than a minute last night to do it. Put it into a free system like Claude.ai, or I think GPT-3 sometimes is free, and just get it to tell you what it thinks your content pillars should be, because that's really interesting. Choose 3 to 5. Personal branding and your business and services are going to be 2 of them, and then 3 more. We'll try them on, we'll see how they fit. We might change the following month. Then we're going to optimize our bios and our highlights. We can ask for feedback in the Hothouse group if you're worrying about what you should say. Now, the highlights get filled from stories. So when you're planning your stories that you're going to be putting out in the next month, when you think about the titles that you want to give to your highlights, then you want to be putting up stories that relate to those highlights so that you can get them back down into the highlight bubble so that they will be there for people to, to build up a library of material there for people to binge. And then finally, sort of, got a couple of other things, but finally, start taking photos, collecting video, gathering the materials that are going to be the materials that you use when we come to Social Media Race Day. So sort out your portfolio, get your photographs in order. If you go anywhere nicely dressed, get someone to take photos of you. Make sure that you start getting a backlog of materials that can be dipped into for these purposes. And next time we'll talk about where we file this stuff. But for now, get it together. And so, for example, between now and the next webinar is Design Week at Chelsea Harbour. These are the kinds of opportunities that we have for actually filling our resources full of photographs. So it could be that there's going to be some fantastic opportunities over the next week or two to actually get some photos and get some content put aside, ready for us to use when race day comes. Now, I do have 2 other things. I'm going to be trying Planoly, which I haven't used before, when I do my social media at race day in March. That's because Planoly is going, and I've had to pay for this, and it's going to allow me to go in multiple different directions with the content that I produce. So the same thing can serve LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, and that just feels like a good use of resources. But Meta has its own free scheduling tool. So you should look at that. Now, I was looking at it yesterday in Safari, and it wasn't working terribly well in Safari, but it worked well in Chrome. So you might need to try it in a different browser. But have a look at it and see how you feel about it, because maybe we'll be using it when race day comes. So this seems like quite a lot. Oh, hang on, there's one more thing. Look for inspiration on Instagram. So for example, someone I always come back to is the garden designer, Pollyanna Wilkinson. I think her social media is perfect. It's got lots of personal branding. It's super professional. It's beautifully curated. Her grid looks fantastic. It's got just the right for me. So she's obviously, maybe I'm her ideal client. It's got just the right level of intimacy. It feels private, but it also feels like it gives a bit of a porthole. And she's very good at putting titles onto some of her posts, and others don't have titles. And those titles will allow the viewer to, it's like seeing the title on a book, and you can decide whether you want to go there and have a look at what's in that book. And that little piece of information makes her feed bingeable. So that's what we're aiming to achieve. So have a look through Instagram, have a lovely time looking at other designers' feeds and see how they strike you and see what that means for what you want to do. Now, this seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but this is one, two, three, four, one, two, three, and four. Once you've done it once, that's it. You would never have to do it again unless you want to change it. And the number 5, which is gathering material through the month, is I'm afraid that's just something we're going to have to do. So while it seems like a lot for the first time, I am planning on running these monthly, and each month it should get easier. It should get, it should be less headache up front. Now, I just wanted to say that if you are interested in delving more deeply into strategy for your business and you want these long-term plans, and you want to, to be able to schedule strategically and do this and follow this through for the rest of the year, I am just about to launch the next boot camp. There is an early bird offer up, which has it at 850 instead of 1180. But you might need to be quick because actually it's going really quite well. So this could be, just letting you know that there is an opportunity to join me and a small group of peers and work together live for the rest of the year. That is one offer. I have another offer at the moment, which is that I'm also going to be doing an AI for residential interiors 1-day workshop. These are both on my website. If you're coming on the boot camp, you don't need to do the workshop because we do AI endlessly in boot camp. So you will get to the bottom of that just through boot camp. Anyway, those 2 offers are available if you're interested in working with me a little bit more. However, I want to get back to race day. So does anybody want to ask any questions at this point? If you do, just come off mute and jump in and let me know what you want to know more about before I conclude.
Hi, Julia.
Oh, sorry, Sonia.
No, you go first.
It's just a very quick one about the difference between Claude and ChatGPT and why you would go for one over the other.
That's a very good question. I'm a GPT girl. I feel like I've trained it, and the reason that I didn't use it for this presentation was I don't know if it's necessarily free, and it's a little bit hard for me to see. I think it does have a free version.
It is. Yeah, I think I've got GPT-4 and it is cheap. It is free.
Yeah. Okay, well, in which case my loyalty is actually to GPT-4. It's a little bit hard for me to see because I have an account. It doesn't show me whether or not it's available as a free option. But Claude did a fantastic job last night. So, but yes, I absolutely adore GPT-4.
There's one thing that you talked about introducing yourself and sort of personalizing it a bit.
Yeah.
But it turns out that it doesn't save any of that. It doesn't memory unless you go to settings, and then you can put all of that information into settings and then it remembers each time. Otherwise, you have to repeat about the British English and things like that.
Right. I paid $20 a month, I think, for GPT-4. And so I have an amount of memory and it remembers everything. So I can talk to it about something that I spoke to it about 3 months ago, and it's right on it with that, that thing.
Crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sonia, sorry, did you have a question?
Yes, it's about social media channels, basically. I mean, I already post on Instagram and then automatically to LinkedIn. Automatically to Facebook and LinkedIn as well. I keep resisting TikTok, and I'm interested to know your thoughts on TikTok or anybody else's thoughts on TikTok, as to whether it's worthwhile help, basically.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I'd be interested in other points of view. My question would be, are your ideal clients on TikTok? You know, are they going to find you there? What does anybody else think?
I think that possibly the younger generation are on TikTok, and I think the up and coming architects and finances and people with disposable wealth in the sort of late 20s to late 30s bracket are on TikTok more than our generation, or my generation, I should say.
That's not necessarily my target audience, though, is it?
I think that is the
I don't
question.
know.
I mean, my son tells me I should be on TikTok because it's not all about dancing and larking about. It's just I personally I feel like I think if I go on to Planoly and it allows me to diffuse down to TikTok as well, why wouldn't you? You know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
So
it's about
that
making how easy is it to
yeah.
use? Because I'm a total Luddite and I can't even do a reel. Hold my hand up.
Well,
I can do a carousel and put some music on, but that's about it.
we'll talk about that a little bit next time, actually.
Okay.
But
So yeah,
yeah,
the jury's still out on TikTok. I might
I,
have to
I
look into it.
I do. You know, you could ask you. No, I'm sorry. I've said my bit.
I'll ask my daughter.
Yes,
Thank you.
Siobhan.
These slides are going to be available afterwards.
The presentation video is going to be available.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put the link in Hothouse, Siobhan.
Yeah, I was scribbling notes away furiously, and I'm worried I've missed some things. You know what I'm like.
Yeah, I can put the slide presentation there if that would be. Yeah, okay. I'll put the
yeah.
slide presentation there
Yes,
as well.
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Could you share that prompt for Claude?
Yes, I will do, Ellie. I've got two versions of it actually. I've got the version which is the blank one, insert your information here, and then I've got a second version of it, which is the one I doctored to pretend I was an interior designer, and I've got what Claude produced. So I'll give you both documents so that you can. I do think they both bear looking at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Julia. I was just going to say thanks so much for all of this, and I'm really looking forward to going along with it. I may not have, like us who are like quite new, don't necessarily have the content, for example, for highlights.
Yeah.
And what I wouldn't want to do is put in highlights and not really have anything yet to show. So I was wondering whether I might just do it in a slightly different order and have to build up my posts first. And then, you know, I think it's good to be aware of what we need to do, but I might not necessarily be able to do it all on race day because I'm not sure I'll be ready.
That's absolutely fine. I think it's worth thinking about what you're going to want those highlights to be in the future so that you can be putting out the content that will eventually fill those highlights.
Okay.
And I do think it's worth trying different things and seeing how they float, you know, seeing what attention they get. So just have a go.
Okay.
Yeah.
But thank you. This sounds really good.
No problem. Okay, so if anybody, yeah, Siobhan, carry on.
Sorry, one last question. I just had a thought about highlights. Thank you for mentioning that word because I did not know what that word was before today. And little round thingies at the top of Instagram. That's what I call them. In terms of the highlights, is there a sweet spot in terms of how many we should have? Is there, I'm gathering it should be like 5, more than 3, less than 7. I don't know. Is there like a rule of thumb?
That's a very good question. They disappear off the end eventually. So my guess would be as many as sort of fit neatly across the top. But I would ask, that's a question I would ask GPT-4.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So on the screen are the things that ideally will be temporarily committed to before before race day and before the next webinar. Webinar 2, as I said, is going to be Tuesday the 18th of March at 6:30 p.m. And then we're going to be looking at how we do this, because I realise I haven't told you that. I've told you what sorts of things you might want to think about, but we actually haven't got down to how we're going to do it. So that'll be on the 18th of March. And then that will give you another 9 days before the actual race day to get your ducks in a row so that on race day we're ready to go. Now, I'm asking you to do a lot of preparation before race day. As I've said, in the future, a lot of this stuff will just roll over and will feed further events. I do have some dates in mind for future race days. The good news is that because of boot camp, which takes a great lump in the middle of April, May, the distance between March race day and April race day is quite short. So we're only going to be doing like 3 or 4 weeks prep on the first race day, but the second race day is going to be a little bit longer. So sometimes it'll be 5 weeks of prep, sometimes it'll be only 3 or 4 weeks of prep. So that'll vary. But I'll make those dates available shortly, and I will put the recording up, I will put the slides up, and I will share the prompt, the empty prompt and the example prompt as well, so that you can have those to look at. But I really recommend using AI to help you produce these materials, because it's going to save you an enormous amount of time. Okay, so I think that's my final slide. That's my final word on the matter. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Julia. Lovely to see you all.
Julia.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.